ADHD is a disease which has implications for one's future. Many of the implications are negative, and those are well known and have been discussed previously. However, there are also positive attributes of ADHD. Anthropologists have noted that the risk-taking gene is very important for society to move ahead its frontier. It pushes society to a new level. An example of this is in the United States. Many of the people who came to the United States were risk takers. They got on boats in the 17th century and crossed an ocean that was totally uncharted and unknown to come to an unknown land and to settle that land. Now, as we hear about some of those personalities, we realize that many of them had the characteristics of ADHD. They certainly had that high energy, enthusiasm, the drive to do something. They worked very, very hard, and many of those people were rather characteristic of having charisma and the sparkle of life, to be a leader, to get other people enthused in what they were enthused in. They also had impulsivity, and this impulsivity, again, that risk-taking, gave them the courage. They were mavericks. They were people who did things that other people didn't do. Some people would call them crazy to cross an ocean, to cross a continent. Now, the child who has ADHD is very stubborn. Sometimes we call them oppositional or defiant. However, this stubborn child becomes a determined adult. They go out and get very focused on a goal, and in that goal, they don't seem to have ADHD. When they are focused on something that is very, very important to them, the brain is stimulated, and that lack of dopamine in the prefrontal cortex is changed into a brain that has adequate dopamine. So these adults become very determined because their brains feel good. They're able to do things when they're highly stimulated. So people with ADHD need high levels of stimulation. Now, the other characteristics of ADHD is poor detailing. However, that poor detailing allows them to have the big picture, the big vision of where they want to go, and not being encumbered all the time with the details that may hold them back. The distractibility can be seen as creativity, and that is, being distractible, you have a vast array of disjointed thoughts and ideas. And when you put this array of disjointed thoughts and ideas into a new formulation, we call that creativity. It's the imagination of creating different ways of looking at a problem. And certainly we know those people with ADHD can be very, very creative. Now, the predictors of success in ADHD are people who have a positive attitude toward overcoming their deficits. So people who have that drive and have that confidence to overcome and not be knocked down by their differences are the people who succeed with ADHD. The other characteristic is self-awareness. So people who have ADHD that are aware of themselves, both their strengths and weaknesses, is an important characteristic for success in ADHD. The third positive predictor is the ability to seek support from outside sources. This is even more important than IQ and academic achievement. When somebody has ADHD, if they feel comfortable in asking for help and don't see that need for help as something that's negative, then they can get the help that they need and overcome any obstacle. People who understand clearly their own strengths and weaknesses are people who can make plans and devise methods to overcome obstacles. And most importantly, it's important to not overrate their shortcomings. Thinking of themselves as hopeless or incompetent is not a good predictor. What we want to see are people who feel good about themselves, feel good about their capabilities, and use their drive to overcome their shortcomings and weaknesses. There are certain successful professions with ADHD that are special and geared to people who have attention deficit disorder. Comedians, I think that there are some easy examples that all come to mind. Jim Carrey, Robin Williams. And again, here we see they have the charisma, they have the ability to think divergently, to think creatively, to look at odd ways of looking at things that we all take for granted. A salesperson is another very successful profession with people with ADHD. And the salesperson has lots of energy. That energy and that drive are very positive in sales. The other characteristic is that you don't get worried about what people think about you, and you're able to continually to push, to drive the sale along to its closing. You're not put off by people and worrying about what they think about you. You have charisma, the charisma of loving your product, loving what you do, and that energy that infect other people around you. Inventors are people who do very well with ADHD. And Thomas, probably the most common person that we all think about, is Edison. Edison is a man who had multiple inventions going on at the same time. If you ever get to Edison, New Jersey, and see his laboratory, it is amazing to notice there were 20 or 30 different cubicles with inventions going on simultaneously. And Edison would walk down the row, involving himself with the other people working on these inventions that he had created. And he would give them his bits of random thought, his divergent thinking, and they would overcome some obstacle they were having with his help. And then he would move on to the next cubicle with the next group of men and helping them overcome the obstacle. So the inventor is the person who enjoys being on their own, who enjoys taking risks, who enjoys the drive to see their vision carried out and have the creative way of looking at things. Entrepreneurs are also very successful professionals with ADHD. They have some of those same characteristics we've been talking about: the charisma, the risk-taking, the drive, and the creative ways of looking at things. Entrepreneurs certainly don't see the obstacles. All they see is the goal and the opportunity.